Hey everyone, Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and now it's time for episode 287 of Album of the Day, in which for today's album review I'm going to be talking about a British rock band that has been at it since 2018, and even before the pandemic, they've already given themselves quite a reputation as a pretty as one of the more daring and very explorative bands in the current wave of post-punk that's pretty much been ruling UK's underground music scene lately. And they already had plenty of fanfare off of singles they put out in 2019, which were Sunglasses and Athens France. And judging by those song titles, you probably know what band I'm referring to here. It's the British experimental rock and post-punk outfit known as Black Country New Road. And I'm here to review their debut album, which came out on February 5th, 2021. And the album is called For the First Time. And it's clearly become one of the most hyped about underground rock albums of the year. I know, like, most of my YouTube peers have been raving about this album, and just out of curiosity and the fact that they just seem pretty cool, I decided to go check them out, and boy am I glad to say that it definitely lived up to the hype. This is easily one of my favorite rock albums of the year. And certainly one of my favorites of the year to come from the current wave of British post-punk. And the funny thing is, initially when I heard this album, I didn't really love it too much. Like, I thought it was cool what they were doing. Like, I thought some of the ideas were cool, but in terms of, like, its structure, I kind of felt like, oh, it's kind of, indecipherable. It's somewhat all over the place, but then it only took one more listen to the entire thing for me to realize that I was way wrong. They actually have so much chops as musicians, and the fact that they managed to create such an epic and kind of very unpredictable album in just over 40 minutes is quite insane and sane. And yes, you could probably lump them into the same camp as artists like Black Midi or other recent hyped about post-punk bands like Dry Cleaning and Squid, but don't even think to say that Black Country New Road sounds like those acts. This band most certainly doesn't, even though you definitely can hear the Slint worship pretty, flagrantly for most of the record, which isn't a bad thing considering, I just recently, it wasn't until just recently that I finally got into Slint's landmark 1991 album, Spiderland, but definitely an album that I could not be more happy to check out because it definitely is one of the most important rock records for this kind of music especially. We kick things off with a bang with the opening track called Instrumental, which is kind of like a little intro that is supposed to set the tone of the record, and immediately from the dun-dun, 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 immediately it's won me over with that opening drum pattern, and great drumming on there, really nice bass line. And I love how smoothly the different instruments enter into the song. You'll get a bit of synth. You'll get this this kind of dramatic guitar riff, and then the you have the violin playing that catchy little melody, and the saxophone is also playing that melody as well. It sort of sounds like it definitely has, some elements of klezmer music, which is something I never would have thought to, incorporate into this kind of music. But, it just really works. The way that the saxophone and the violin add those elements, and also you can definitely hear this kind of exotic melodies in these in like the other instrumentation too. Uh, It kind of sounds like the opening credits for some really the opening credits for a movie, or like some sort of really dope fight scene in an action film, or it could be like a comic book theme or something like that. It definitely has that very cinematic quality to it, and it's also just so much fun to listen to. I've played just the intro of this album so many times. It's definitely my most played track on the album, even if it isn't necessarily my favorite. It just kicks so much ass, and I think it sets the tone for the record so incredibly well. And obviously the second half of the track is quite incredible as well. And that little sax solo at the end is quite powerful as well. Then we go into the first actual song on the record with Athens, France, a song that I already mentioned was released as a single back in 2019. Only this time, for the record, they've actually updated some of the lyrics. I'm going to be real here. I haven't heard the original Athens, France, so I can't really do a lyrical comparison or anything. But one thing I do know for sure is that I know the original version of the song had a reference to "Thank You Next" being stuck in her head, which obviously they're referring to the very popular Ariana and incredibly catchy Ariana Grande song. But for this version, we kick things off with the lyric "She flies to Paris, France. I'll come down from her childhood bed," and Isaac Wood right out of the gate really showcases a very unique vocal delivery with his very kind of specific and very banal kind of observations at everyday life and interactions that and he seems to reflect on kind of the simplest things in life becoming so familiar to him that they become almost terrifying in a way. Definitely very good opening riff to the song, and the song is definitely quite adventurous. They're about 3 minutes into the song, there's 3 different ideas that you're hearing throughout, and to the point of it, I guess, affecting my enjoyment of the song a little bit. There's so much going on in the first half that it just feels a little bit inconsistent and not really fully formed. In my opinion. There's a section right in the middle of the track that for some reason to me just doesn't really fit in with the rest of the track. But thankfully, that kind of very subtle Slint-esque section near the end of the song is incredible, and also Isaac's lyrics on the second half of the track are quite phenomenal, and I just can't help but hang on to every word he says. Sometimes you listen to music and some words just kind of just kind of fly by on you, but this album, every word that comes out of Isaac Wood's mouth, it just comes off so interesting. And also the end of the song is just so beautiful with the kind of Modest Mouse-esque guitar harmonizing, and the on top of it is just so spellbinding. But then we get to Science Fair, which is easily one of the most unsettling songs that I've really heard all year. Just the way that Isaac recounts this past traumatic experience is just he's just so laser specific on the fact that all of this happened during while he was attending a science fair. It's fair, and also like that intro with the twangy guitar noise is just like it's so incredible and definitely sets the tone pretty well. And then the horns and the strings are playing this just incredibly sinister and very just demented melody over top of some hypnotic guitars and very intricate cymbal the cymbal and bass drum playing. Incredible midsection with the guitar noise and the saxophone colliding together and just kind of, squealing to the point of just straight up insanity, and the way that it transitions into that very haunting synth near the end is just incredible. And I would argue the intensity of the second half of the track even rivals the first half a little bit. Not only in terms of this encounter at a Cirque du Soleil performance being so so wild, but also like the instrumentation just getting louder and Isaac just like shouting on top of it, "It's black country out there!" And the whole song literally just explodes at the end. It's definitely got this horror movie type intensity to it that only rises as the song goes on. And then we have the song Sunglasses, which, like Athens France, also known for being released as a single, but with lyrics updated a little bit, which, as you would expect, has garnered a bit of backlash from some of their fans. But ultimately, I think the band, definitely has good intentions for changing them, because, in a way, they're sort of doing it to make the song feel more relevant, even though, like I said, not super familiar with the older versions of these songs. There's all these songs. I love like how the intro very much sets the tone for the track. The that rhythm is just like so hypnotic, but also kind of it has this really good kind of funky groove to it that I really like. And then, of course, before you know it, Isaac opens up the lyrics by saying, "Welcome to the best new six-part Danish crime drama." Sort of right out of the gate, opening the song with such specific lyrics about, what he's sort of surrounded by all the time. Every other day he's, forced to watch this very kind of, boring and somewhat cheesy, TV show, but yet he's just kind of stuck with it, because that's what people around him are into. And also, I love certain lyrics in the song where he talks about, turning into his father and complaining of terrible theater performances, as well as, taking pleasure in things like alcohol and also becoming a little anxious when hearing someone like juicing watermelons or something like that. And also there's even a part like the song is like so intense and so specific about everything happening around him. And also, I would have never thought that in a piece of post-punk I would hear somebody saying, "The absolute pinnacle of British engineering." There's even a section in the middle of the song where he sounds kind of quivery and delivers these kind of Conor Oberst-esque inflections, which somehow really work so well. There's a really cool noise section in the middle, and then it goes to this dun 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 dun, this very menacing second half that features plenty more quotable lines, like the line about "I wish my friends would stop dressing up like Richard Hell" is definitely one that stuck out like a sore thumb in a good way. And basically, he's just sounding even more desperate here than he is like in the first half of the song, and even going as far as to say things like "Leave Kanye out of this," like this over just some very wild and yet very groovy instrumentation that somehow manages to still feel very refined and intricate at the same time. Definitely a very good centerpiece for this quite amazing record. Track X is certainly the most accessible track on the record, which is kind of why it seems to be maybe Black Midi's most Black Country New Road's most played song on Spotify. I think I saw it, or at least their most popular song. But still, even though it is definitely one of the quieter, subtler tracks on the record, really it's the lyrics that make it stand out as one of the album's best songs. Best songs. I mean, just right from the opening lines, it's definitely a song that, I may not know exactly what it's about, but at the same time, there are plenty of lyrics that give me clues as to, what's happening. Like, it seems to be about the kind of, sort of the different hurdles that come with a relationship, and also, how could we never forget a song that, has a line that says, "I told you I loved you" in front of Black Midi, which definitely, is something that you pretty much can't ignore, because, I've never heard Black Midi referenced by name, and yes, they've certainly played some shows with Black Country New Road, so it makes total sense. Oh, and also Slint does get referenced by name, like in a line of, going on tour with the second best Slint tribute act. And the song is just it's so beautiful. Like, I love, the way that the twangy guitar goes with the, the saxophone, as well as, kind of spellbinding synth lines. And also those, ooh, 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 ooh. Those kind of spooky harmonies in the chorus are definitely so beautiful as well. Definitely a standout moment on here. And then we close things off with Opus, which is definitely a very fitting way to close this album. It brings back the klezmer influences from the previous track, and I think the way that, that kind of sound kind of bookends the album is so cool. And also, I just love the mix of the galloping drums, the twangy guitar, the howling saxophone and violin, of course, playing those melodies that have that very exotic tone to them. And it's also a very fitting kind of finale for this record, sort of, opening the song by saying, everything we built on Black Country ground, the country ground, and also the song just has a very intense finish. It's a finish where, the vocals turn from being kind of, quiet and somewhat depressive to all of a sudden, he's very manic, and, it's definitely far from a happy ending to this, epic that we're experiencing on this album. And I just think melodically, it definitely is one of the standout tracks on here. And even though, it doesn't really stand out to me as much lyrically as other tracks on here, there could have been a more fitting or a more satisfying way even to close out this record. So yeah, you've probably heard many people say this already, but this is easily one of the best albums of the year. It definitely is one that is absolutely worthy of its hype. I know this is probably not going to be for everyone. I get that this band may be a little obnoxious to some, the way that to some in terms of, just how, like, how upfront they are about, everyday life experiences, as well as, the fact that their melodies might come off a little irritating to some. And this band is also notorious for being dunked on a little bit for being a Slint ripoff, but ripoff, and yes, they definitely sound very much like Slint on certain moments on the record. I mean, and they do reference the band by name in one of the lyrics too. But I actually take these Slint comparisons I'm making are actually a compliment because, like I said, Spiderland, phenomenal record, and Slint definitely was truly a very out there kind of band, and if they didn't exist, we likely wouldn't have a bunch of these other kind of bands that are equally as as out there and ambitious. I mean, Slint certainly isn't playing with jazz or klezmer influences like what BCNR is doing on this album. Yeah, I love the record. Great, it's definitely phenomenal execution. Great songwriting. Very interesting vocal presence as well. Even the theatrical aspects of it, I think, really makes sense for this kind of music, or the kind of subject matter being addressed on this album. So definitely a strong 8 out of 10 for me. Some of you watching this video may have heard the record already, but if you haven't, go check it out. Stream it. Maybe even buy it on vinyl if you want the physical copy of it. And hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I did. So that's my review of For the First Time, the debut album from Black Country New Road, and I'll see you for episode 288.